So, hey, and welcome to the Energy Revolution podcast. This is the show for those who know there is something more, those who are searching for all of the answers and the meaning to life and who want to create change. And today I am joined by this, I was going to say strange, wonderful, awesome human being, Mr. James Lavers. My name's Yvette Taylor. I am your host, and we are going to be talking about all things energy. Who knows what else is going to come up in this conversation? I'm a little bit nervous, to be honest, and I will explain why in a moment. But if you are new to our world and need to discover more about how to change your life, then please come over and discover more at discoveream.com/pod. This is no ordinary show. Not an ordinary show. This isn't the same stuff that you hear everywhere else, but what you will find here, I know, will be the answers you've been searching for, and I know that there, as always, is a reason that you're listening to this today. So I'm really excited. This is one of my first episodes on the sofa. Dum dum dum.
I feel
Play
really
dramatic
honoured.
music, and you should be. No, I'm joking. I'm honestly, truly honoured. And I want to I'll give you a little bit of reason why I've introduced or why I've invited this amazing man. He's my brother from another mother. He's been my friend, my coach, my guide, my mentor, my ass kicker for the last 10, we keep trying to figure this out.
Must be about a decade,
about the last 10 years. And he was my first official coach. He was my first official coach. In the industry, and there is so much about James, which I'll get you to share your story in a minute, and I've said this to you before, but I'm going to say this again. I wouldn't be where I am with EAM if it wasn't for you, and that was why I wanted you to be one of the first guests that I had on the sofa, because it's kind of a monumental landmark moment for me. You kicked my ass. You were the first coach. You were my first coach, but you were the first person to actually truthfully hold a mirror up to me, my potential, what I could do, what I was screwing up with, and you weren't scared to say it. And I've seen you coach and guide and help hundreds of other people in the journey as well. And I know that you've got so much to share about the personal development industry. I was talking about this last night. I was like, James is a little bit like the godfather, one of the godfathers of the industry. And I was like, he's going to be really pissed that I make him sound really old, but you're not. Look at this face. Look at his face. But he's more like my brother. You're my brother from another mother, and you've got so much to share. So do you want to share you? Why the hell have I got you on the sofa? That's probably...
I'm trying to wonder. That was a lovely introduction, by the way. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that very, very much. So, my name's James Lavers. I have been developing exceptional voices just like yours for 20 years now. I started young, started in my early mid-20s, and here I am now, more excited about this industry and more excited about the possibilities for people like you, and anyone who really wants to get their good out to the world, and help people with it. And that's what I've been doing in my own little way for a while now.
How did you... I know your story, but how did you get into all of this? Because none of us ever sit there at the beginning of our journey and think, I'm going to grow into the personal development industry. How did you find your way into all this stuff? Where did you begin?
Yeah, well, I sort of did dream of coming into this industry to an extent. So for me, it goes back to, I was about 16, 17 years old. I had just left home. My parents had to move to London for work, and they, rather than just kicking me out, they sort of said, look, we'll rent you a little flat so you can stay and finish what in the UK we call the A levels, which is sort of what you do after basic high school,
Yeah.
And I was like, this is insane. I'm like the first kid in school who's got his own place. And
did they just want you out of the house?
well, they moved to 100.
Yeah,
maybe.
Off you go,
How do we politely say this?
Get
It's time
out.
to go. But they were moving 100 miles away, and they didn't want to take me out halfway through these exams. So I was like, cool. I'm very, very happy with this. But as I think happens to a lot of us in adolescence, I was going through a crisis of my own, a crisis of like, who am I? Teenage angst, basically. But for me, it showed up as I was a horrific blusher. So I would blush so badly when I was talking to anybody, made eye contact with anybody, was in any kind of communication. And as a 17-year-old, red-blooded male, like I wanted to be speaking to girls and going out and, doing the things that a healthy teenager should be doing. And I wasn't. I was kind of hermiting in my flat. I was skipping school. I was getting really depressed. I to the extent I grew my hair really long in the hopes that I could sort of almost use as a curtain. And that was getting weird. I was going into school and I was hiding and being really, the kids call it emo nowadays.
Yeah.
I was being that real kind of gothic, weird kid because I just wanted to hide myself. And it got to a point where I was getting really depressed about it. And I was sort of like, I went to work in a nightclub because at least it was dark in the club. So it didn't matter if I blushed. And then I was sort of living this weird nocturnal lifestyle. And my brother lived about a mile away. And it got so bad that I went to his flat and I just said, please help, please help. And he handed me this big plastic case, like 2 foot by 1 foot. Back in the day, do you remember the clamshell cases?
Clamshell. I think I've actually still got some somewhere knocking around at the house.
Those big plastic clamshell cases, and you'd open it up, and inside, sort of pressed into the plastic, were these 6 audio cassettes. I'd never seen anything like this. And on the cover of it was this really cheesy, cringy looking guy who had this slick black parting, massive teeth and huge hands, and it went unlimited power on it. And I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
What's this?
And he said, listen to it, bro. We call each other bro. And he said, listen to it, bro. And I said, all right. So I took it home and I listened to it. And this weird, over-the-top American that I just thought, what is the hype with all of this? Overnight changed my life. And his name's Anthony Robbins, who
some people might know.
You may know.
You might have heard of him.
You may have heard of him. He's one of the best known names in sort of personal development.
He is a godfather of the industry.
100%.
Absolutely.
And overnight, I listened to all of the 6 tapes, which was an abridged version of his book. So it was just a kind of an edited version of his book with all the good stuff. But what struck me was, here's this complete stranger. I now think of them as like benevolent strangers.
Yeah.
And it's like, here's this person who doesn't know me. I don't know him. But he was speaking to me as if he did. And the wonderful thing for anyone who's had any exposure to, say, a Tony Robbins tape set is like he really speaks to you like he's in the room with you. And he's like, get up, move around like you've got a cape on your back, put yourself in a better state and just sit there. And he's not just reading from a book, like it's like he's there next to you. And I was like, I'd never been spoken to like this before. I'd never had where is he? I thought he was going to jump out. But it worked, and literally overnight, I saw what I was doing inside myself to make myself embarrassed about everything. And it was nothing to do with this, at the time it just felt like something that just happened to me. And this was the first experience in my entire life of like, oh no, there were things I was doing that was making that happen to me. That I was in control. And everything changed. And I had this notepad, I had this little A5 notepad that I was writing stuff as I was going through the tapes in. And at the end of it, I wrote down, one day he'll be thanking me. And I didn't mean it in like a cocky way.
I've just got goosebumps.
I was so touched by the idea that somebody who didn't know me could help me so profoundly that the next day I literally skipped into school. It's like I was so happy. I went and got my hair cut. I felt all confident and everything. And I was like,
what's going on here?
All somebody did was hold up a mirror to me and show me what I was doing to myself. And I was so touched by that. I cannot even tell you. And I was like, I want to help him in return. I want to show him I'm thankful. And I promised myself then that I would do everything in my power. You know, it wasn't even I'd do everything in my power. A seed was sown.
Yeah.
That's the best way of putting it. A seed was sown that God, to do something like he's doing, but to do it in a way that meant I was giving back to him.
Yeah.
That was all that I became. I kind of became a bit obsessed with it. I thought about it all the time. I would play the music from, you know, the first Jurassic Park film where it goes da 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 da. You know, that kind of orchestral John Williams score. I would listen to it over and over and over again and imagine walking up on a stage and seeing like smiling faces looking at me, and I would just dream about it. I can't even say I obsessed and took action, because I didn't. I dreamt about it so floridly, so vibrantly, and I would make these little scenarios in my head. And to this day, every one of the scenarios that I dreamt back then, honestly, this will sound cheesy, but it's 100% true. Every scenario I dreamt back then so deeply, when I was just walking through life, has been true, has come true. Every single one of them.
It's not cheesy.
Yeah.
It's what the whole podcast's about.
Yeah, but it sounds cheesy when people hear it, because we think, oh, it's dream's a dream. But like every one of those dreams I dreamt back then, I've realised, to the extent that this was in about 1993, 94. So I was 16, 17-year-old kid. 8 years later? Maybe nearly 10 years later, in 2003... I'd gone into a career as an infomercial producer, working in the home shopping TV world. That's where I've had most of my sort of like, when I worked for the man, you know, when I worked in corporate, that's where I worked. And selling stuff on telly, basically, selling stuff at a distance all day long. And in 2003, I got the chance to help Tony Robbins sell his product on TV. I was his producer. Just for one show. He was in the UK. He was visiting the UK to do his big event. And he did 2 shows at the beginning, just before the event, and 2 shows at the end. And the first 3 shows, I was a freelance producer, so I was kind of just working for the highest bidder at the time, you know, or for wherever I could get work, you know. And I was pretty good at it. I was young, but I was very, very good at. I got it. I just got what it was to sell at a distance, you know, to sell when somebody's not in front of you. And I got a call from the liaison at QVC this one day, and I remember I was out walking in the country, and she was like, her name's Tina, and she said, "Hey James, it's Tina. Listen, we wonder if you can come in and do a show. There's an American motivational speaker in town. The first 3 shows have kind of done all right, but not where the numbers aren't where we want them to be. Can you come in?" And I was just like, "Who is it?" And she was like, "This guy called Anthony Robbins." And I was just like, "What?" I was like, "I'll be there." I started sprinting straight away. I was like, I'll be there. So I took the shift, went into QVC. It meant doing some other shows as well. Like, you don't just do a whole shift work there and do 1 hour-long show. But all I was obsessed with was doing this show. And Tony was late to the studio, so he didn't show up for the show until like quarter to the show beginning.
Wow.
And normally a guest should be there like an hour or even 2 hours before the show. He wasn't there. And, you know, when he did finally get there, I ended up having about 8 minutes to speak with him before the show, to sort of say, look, here's what I think we can do to make it better. And I'd spent hours watching the previous shows, seeing what they'd done that I thought could be improved. I got my 8 minutes in the studio with him. I was introduced to him by the PA as the producer of the show. He listened so intently to everything I said. And at the time, I'm like, 26, something like that. You know, I'm not, you know, I'm young, I'm a kid. But he listened to me really intently. It was only a few simple things, really, I thought that we could do better, that he wasn't doing. And I knew he knew what to do, but he wasn't doing it, which I find is a common pattern with human beings, right? You know?
And people in the industry, like, you know what you're supposed to do, but never end up doing it.
And I was just like, let's do those things instead, you know. And then, I sat in this little dark room with monitors everywhere, but I had this microphone a bit like this one, and I could speak into the microphone. And Tony had like an earpiece in, and so did the presenter who was kind of hosting the show. And so I also had this monitor in the gallery. It's called the gallery, where the producer sits and the director sits in front of me. And I've got this monitor that shows what's going on the phones, like how things are selling. This is how I'd gotten very good at what I did was because I would adjust what I told the presenters to say based on what I saw it selling. So if they said something and it sold, it made the phone line spike, as they called it, spike. And I'd go, oh, they liked the thing you said there. Say that more.
Say it more.
And literally, so it's QVC, the shopping channel, which is huge in UK and US and much of the world, one of the biggest electronic retailers on the planet. And what I found is that it was like a live laboratory for like what works if you're trying to persuade somebody at a distance, and not just persuade them, get them to reach for their wallet, reach for their phone, pick up and order the thing on screen. And so we did an hour-long show, and we basically more than doubled the average of his sales in that last show. So that for me was that changed everything. It wasn't my first work with people in this industry. That had come a year before. But it was the most pivotal. It was the one that sort of...
That kicked you in the butt to get on with
what you're supposed to do. Absolutely. I was like, oh, well, hang on a minute. If I, little old me, who's just good at selling stuff at a distance, can help Tony Robbins, like, well, I could help...
You can help other people.
Other people, you know.
I'm very grateful the universe kicked you in the butt to do that. I
Me
really
too.
am.
Me
and
too.
I think there are hundreds of other people, thousands of other people who are.
Well, he changed my life, right? So he changed my life, and in some ways saved my life, not literally, but figuratively. And he didn't even know that. And
Did you ever get the chance to tell him?
Yeah, absolutely. After the show, I came up and I was like, listen, we didn't get a chance to say after. And he was just like, cool, I'm really glad. Yeah. We didn't do selfies then. This was 2003, so we didn't have kind of...
Had pages back then.
Yeah.
Beep, beep.
But he wrote me a thing and he said, thanks for all your help, live with passion, obviously, Tony Robbins. So that was really nice. But what had always struck me was and this has always been my message to everyone who wants to get into this industry, is like, you might not even know the life you touch.
So often.
And if you don't do the thing that you really want to do, if you don't try and reach people with what you've got, with any good you've got inside you that could help others, if you don't, there could be someone, who really needs you, who doesn't get it. And if that had happened to me, I probably would have got more depressed. I probably would have, I don't know, I might have turned to other, chemicals or whatever to change my mood. It could have gotten a lot worse. Yeah. And I always think, when people are worrying about, oh, but what if people don't like what I say? And, oh, but what about the way I look and all that? And I'm like, you don't get it. There's somebody out there today that needs to hear you. Yeah, needs to hear from you. Just like this benevolent stranger comes into my life, tells me to get up and walk around like I'm got a cape on my back, He didn't know he was doing that at that moment. It was some product he made, but it was life-changing.
Yeah. And it's I've had so many times throughout my journey of sharing EAM where I've thought that, where I've felt that, and I know so many people in the space do, like, who am I? Why am I good enough? What are people going to think of me? All of those things. And you very lovingly kicked me in the arse with a lot of that shit at the beginning. But so many times along the way, I've had people come completely out the blue, like, oh, I read your book 3 years ago, or
wow.
and it changed my life, and I've done this, and I've left my job, and I've changed my relationship, and I've done that, and you think, shit, like, that little, sorry, shameless plug, but this little thing has made such a massive difference to someone. And for me, it was not that it was just words, but just to know that those things have been carried out in perpetuity, I suppose. Like, it expands way beyond you in this moment right now. So when you can step past your shit, which Tony helped you do at the very beginning, and just follow that flow and follow that path, there is magic that unfolds in ways that you will never know. You will never know half of the people whose lives you've touched. And it might have been that one thing on that one day, and they never see you or hear from you again. But I do think, and you said earlier at the beginning, like, you're in love with the personal development industry. I'm going to ask you a question, a bit controversial one in a minute, but there is so much magic in it. There is so much magic in the space. And there are also challenges, I think, in the personal development space. What, along your journey, so after all of this, what happened with Tony, how have you spent the last, I was going to say 30 years, I thought we were in 2030 then. We're not. Rewind, 2022.
Yeah.
What have you spent the last 20-something odd years actually doing? What have you seen? What do you know? Because you've worked with a lot of other people as well in the space.
Yeah.
But you've also coached and guided so many people along the way. So
Yeah.
what else does that look like?
Well, the way I think about it, I've been doing the same thing for the last 20 years. So people with great products, services, experiences, whatever you want to call them, I call them products.
Yeah.
Whatever, because it's a product of our heart, it's a product of our mind, it's a product of our energy, made manifest in some consumable form, whether that's a retreat or an event or a tape set or whatever it might be. I've been doing the same thing for 20 years and I love it, which is people who have something to say that they know could be of help. I mean, what a wonderful industry. People who have something to say that they know could be of help to another human being, helping them turn that into something that can be consumed, that can be digested by the person who needs it most. And more than that, because it's one thing, I see a lot of people making products, but you also have to be able to get it to the people that need it. So it has to connect with the marketplace. People have to see it and get it and realize that this might be for them, and this might just be the day, and this might just be the moment where they get the thing that can actually help them. That's what I've been doing for 20 years, is helping people to do that, to get their products out to the people that need them most.
What are, if you were to name, I won't be mean and give you like 15, if you were to name like 5 big entrepreneurial challenges that you see kind of coming up in the space, what would you say the top 5 challenges are, and how would you deal with that question?
The top 5. Okay, I would say
and I mean in the space of doing it well, not in the
people aren't connected to looking outside themselves. So people that want to become gurus. People don't like that word. I love that word.
What's guru mean to you? Sorry, I'm throwing another question.
You want to help somebody and you're willing to accept the leadership, the burden of responsibility of leadership that comes with that.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
To me, that's what it is. I mean, it comes from the word teacher, but I think it goes a little beyond that. And I think the main problem I see is people unwilling to accept that leadership. And I think that comes from because people, to my view anyway, a lot of the people I work with, a huge amount of the people I work with, especially when they're first emerging into this industry and wanting to start making some money and get some clients and maybe make a product or write a book or do a course or do an event, they're kind of stuck in a form of adolescence. So they're very much waiting for approval and validation, and there's a sense of entitlement, like if they make it, then surely people will just come and buy it, and all these kind of things, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not adult behavior. And so what it does is it creates a really weird vibe with the marketplace that sort of repels customers. It does the opposite of what they want it to do. And then I think that's why there's so many disillusioned people. So I think one of the biggest problems is I think people need to be sort of initiated out of adolescence to come into this industry. Here's the irony. I think a lot of people that come into this industry, though, are in a sort of arrested development of adolescence. I don't fully know why that's the case. I have some theories about it that maybe we could touch on later. But either way, I think look, there's very few industries where you can be rich and famous.
Yeah.
For all the right reasons.
For the right
there's
reasons,
very few, right?
Yeah.
Like there's kind of music, you can become rich and famous where people know you. There's acting, the same. There's sports. There's comedy. And then there's our industry, personal, professional, spiritual development industry, where you can really become very well known and you can become really wealthy, you know. And so that's a draw for people, especially if they can't sing, act, or kick a ball, right? Or tell a joke. Then it's like, how do I get those needs met? So to link to that first challenge, and maybe this is the second one, and these are very inner game challenges, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Is this kind of people come to this industry oftentimes to get their needs met. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, we should look to get our needs met from what we're doing, for sure. But sometimes what this industry allows us to do is to get needs met that maybe it's not healthy for those needs to be met through your work, right? So I'll give you an example. Early on, when I got started, the idea of having that audience smiling back at me and applauding me because of something wonderful I'd said and life-changing I'd said.
Oh, you're so funny.
Right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Lavish praise on me. Yeah.
This industry, you can stand, I was on the speaking circuit quite a lot between about 2008 and 2015. And my last ever big talk was to about 800,000 people. It's where my mentor, Frank Kern, was speaking as well. And I'd kind of gotten it in check by then, but at the beginning of my speaking career, going up on stage and having people appreciate and validate me and everything was fulfilling all sorts of needs in me.
Yeah.
For love, acceptance, validation, you're enough, all of these things. And what I realized, this was probably probably around 2008-9, what I realized was that wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
It's not. If more of my personal needs for love and acceptance and validation and worthiness are being met than my audience's needs are being met, something's out of whack.
Yeah, totally.
Something is seriously out of whack there. And that's what I see, because I saw it in myself, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I got to sort this out.
Yeah.
Like, I can't be getting up on stage so that I feel loved and adored and like, oh, isn't he brilliant? Oh, another need I had, because I fell asleep in my English A-level, because I was working at a nightclub, I didn't do very well academically. Like, beyond my kind of A-level high school certificates, I don't have much of an education. And so it was really important to me that I was thought of as clever. Like, that was my big thing. It's like, I want people to think I'm so clever and sophisticated and smart, and he's got the secrets of the universe in his pocket, and all this kind of stuff. And I recognized that in myself, and I was like, that's not healthy. That's not healthy if I'm doing all of this so that people think I'm clever and I feel I'm clever, if people love me and then I can love me and all that kind of stuff. So what I found as I started to exercise those demons in 2008, 9, 10 was so many of the people I was working with, they had similar sentiments. Yeah. Like, they were doing most of what they were doing
to heal and do the work on.
Yeah.
It's massive.
And just I just say now, like, how many needs are you getting met? Literally write a column. How many needs are you getting met? Be honest.
Yeah.
Doing all the stuff you want to do. What, when people go, oh, I want to do big events. You've done huge events, right? And it's like, I go to people, I'll say, why do you want to do that? They're like, I want to reach a bunch of people. And I'm like, cool, okay, why? And I'll just I'll why them to death. You know? And, there's a certain amount of self-honesty that comes. Some people go, well, it makes me feel good. And I'll be like, all right, what needs are you personally getting met? And what I found was a lot of people had the same thing going on that I had going on, is they were doing a lot of it just because they needed it. Yeah. And I was like, dude. Yeah. Come on.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense.
I was like, come on. And so those two things, I think, don't serve anybody very well. They don't serve you very well. And they definitely don't serve your audience.
I think it's like you said, the conscious awareness, one, that I'm doing this shit, where am I doing it from? And obviously then in my case, doing the work on that shit that's coming up. Yeah. Because it's not coming from an empowered place. No. Which means that, by definition, you can't possibly be empowering the people that are paying you money to be coming in to do the work with you, because you're not coming from an empowered space in the first place. Like, there's a whole bunch from the energy space that, and this is where my frustrations, I suppose, maybe I need to EAM them, but there is a lot of that in the space, and it's the lack of awareness, I think, for many, that they're even doing it. And so many people, that how do I describe this without sounding they come into the space, they're highly skilled or knowledgeable in what they do, but they're not necessarily a coach. They're not necessarily a mentor. They haven't necessarily done any training in the space, but all of a sudden they're coaching and guiding groups of people, sometimes through really deep stuff, you know, unhealed things from that other person's childhood or from their own journey, but they're not actually qualified to do it. And this is the bit where it breaks my heart, because I've seen so many people, I don't want to say broken, but hurt from investing in the trust and, oh, this person's going to help me, and oh my God, you know, like my life's going to be changed by this person, because they've been really good at selling a promise, but they don't actually have the skills, the knowledge, the expertise, and nor have they done the work on themselves, which is actually, I was going to say,
that's the most important bit.
Like 80% of the transformation and that actually happens when you're coaching and guiding somebody comes from the vibration. If not, it's what you as the coach or guide bring to the session, the vibration, the space that you bring from the work that you've done on yourself. Like, if you haven't healed your own shit, you are not in a space to help someone else create the change. And it's a huge thing that is often misunderstood or never even really talked about, because if you haven't created that transformation within yourself, how can you be that mirror to allow someone else to see that it's even possible?
Yeah, I really like that you said qualification, because I think sometimes people think that's the bit of paper. That's really easy. It's really easy to go out and get a bit of paper.
It's easy to sit in a workshop for 3 days and get a certificate.
Yeah, you can do
and not do the work on yourself.
Yeah, you can do a weekend workshop and get a bit of paper. You can do a 4-week thing and get a bit of paper. But I like the fact that
you can even get it online for £7, and you can get a coaching certificate. And those are the bits that frustrate me personally, because it's out of integrity. And I think people are handing over their hard-earned money, trusting, not you, but trusting that other person, like, they're going to help me, not knowing, assuming that everybody is qualified to actually be able to help them through the process of change. And then there's a whole other piece of the puzzle that most people don't know or understand, that actually qualifies you to be able to help people. And it isn't a 2-day workshop. It isn't a certificate. I sound a little bit ranty, but it is something I'm really passionate about, because I think it's such an honour. Truly, it's such an honour when somebody trusts us, say, yes, I want you to take me on this next part of the journey. Like, yes, I'm trusting you and your process and your journey and what you do. And so many people end up feeling let down or not getting to where they're supposed to be, because that person doesn't actually understand the journey of transformation or necessarily have done it on themselves. Yeah. But anyway, that was challenge number 2.
No, I really like it, what you said. And I think, like, when we think of qualification as like an energy, you know,
it is absolutely.
And actually, the way I see it is, if that's right to begin with, if that's at the right place to begin with, the person opposite you, or the people opposite you, or the freaking crowd opposite you, will energetically get, right from the get-go, you ain't saving me or healing me.
No.
And that's where I think it goes wrong to begin with. It's like way far upstream. It's like, you know, I even knew as a teenager, and I think something I got really, that went in from even just listening to that Tony Robbins tape set, was that, like, oh, he didn't fix me.
No.
And I like, he helped me see what I was doing to myself to make me blush. And I was like, wow, thanks for that. And so I never put him on a pedestal. I mean, I was really thankful. I couldn't wait to thank him. And I thought he was awesome. But I wasn't like, he saved me or any of that kind of thing. And so, yeah, if you get that stuff right at the beginning, you know, you're in a good place.
Yeah, totally.
Number 3. So these are the entrepreneurial sort of traits, or
challenges. Just challenges you see, like
the big challenges.
Creating something in this space where you don't end up looking like a dickhead. Sorry, I'm being really sweary today.
Commitment.
Sorry.
Commitment to difference. It's simply like there's. This is not an easy one to talk about, but you've got to, if you are saying the same thing
as everybody else,
Don't expect to be heard. Don't expect to be listened to. Don't expect for anybody to... And you know, when I first came online in late 2004, started in the industry 2002, you know, working mainly in infomercials with people in our industry. And then when I came online in 2004, it was empty, it was quiet. The barrier to entry is now so low that even 25 years ago, less than 25 years ago, if you wanted to get your product in front of your audience, you basically had to be a bit like, it had to be the situation like when I worked with Tony, or when I worked with Wayne Dyer, who was an amazing man to work with, which is you needed a network show, or you needed a shopping channel to say yes to your product. Yeah. You needed manufacturing behind you. You needed usually a big publishing house who were willing to knock out 5,000 copies of your tape set at quite a hefty upfront cost, you know. And it was just like, it wasn't open. It wasn't open. And fair enough, it wasn't open for maybe good reason. The barriers come down. Now we can make a product for virtually nothing using the phone we call our mum with, you know. We can make a product with that and get it out, you know, by spending a couple of bucks on Facebook. You can get it out to your audience straight away this afternoon. You know, anyone could record a half-hour product today that is their most life-changing stuff. And in theory, put it online and be selling it by this afternoon. And that not really cost that much at all. Like tens of dollars. It's crazy, isn't it? So the barriers come down. But what happens is we've got a very, statistically, by the way, there's good statistical verification of this. It's like we've got a kind of a hierarchy that looks like this. It's like a thorn. And so of the roughly 30 billion that the personal, professional, spiritual development industry is worth, of that 30 billion, most of that money is in the hands of about 500 to 700 individuals and organizations. That's it. And everybody else is saying
somewhere here
mostly the same as those 500 to 700. Now, in that instance where you've got such a bottom heavy industry, the need for innovation and for nuance is so important. People don't do that. So the short version of like, what's the third big challenge? Well, the third big challenge is most people are saying the same stuff. That's filtered down from them, usually from a leader at the top of the industry. And so
I learnt this from so-and-so, and so I'm going to almost repeat word for word what they've said, And
I always say it starts with the language. So you'll hear a word come through, like a word that now makes my bones ache when I hear it, is the word authenticity. Now, it's a lovely word, right? With actually genuinely lovely sentiment. And you see, probably at some point about 7 to 10 years ago, one of the leaders, it was probably somebody like Brené Brown, for example, probably used it in a TED Talk or in a book or something that she knew would be reaching millions. And what happens is all the other people who want to make a living in this industry hear it for the first time and they go, oh my God, and they start using that word. But then everyone's saying the word and it loses all meaning. And, you know, other language, things like, and it always starts with the language, you hear it come through, and so people will be like, living your purpose. Living with passion and purpose. If I hear live with passion and purpose one more time, but the problem...
Don't watch the promo for my upcoming program, The Purpose Project. I won't use that.
Cut that out.
I will.
And the problem is there's nothing wrong with the words, but when they get overused, they lose meaning. They lose meaning. And so what we have to do in the challenge is to go back to, I always set people a challenge, and maybe you might want to play along with this at home, but like I always say to people that come work with me who are maybe at the beginning of their business journey, is I say, look, if you met a room full of, or a big elevator full of your potential customers, right? These are people who needed you. And you would have a 3-minute elevator ride, you know, up the Burj Khalifa or something. You know, you'd have a 3-4 minute elevator ride. And then after that elevator ride, you'd never see them again and they'd never see you again. That's it. You'd never see them again. They won't buy any books of yours. They won't buy any courses. They won't see them, right? That's it. They're gone. What would you say to them in that time? You've got more than a kind of a nutshell amount of time, right? You can't just go, hey man, remember to be all that you can be. Your potential is unlimited. You're amazing. And you go, okay, you've got 3 minutes and 55 seconds left.
Yeah.
What else? Like, what are you really going to say? Given a meaty amount of time, like 5 minutes. And I always say start with that, because what you'll do is you'll get through all the fortune cookie wisdom, the be authentic, live your passion, purpose, blah, blah, blah. You get through that in 20 seconds. What's left?
Yeah.
You've still got...
What do you actually have to say?
Yeah, you've got 4.5 minutes. Now, go. And most people can't do that. And I think that's one of the most important things is, can you articulate your kind of core message, your like why you're here in, 4 or 5, up to say 7 or 8 minutes. Can you do that? Do it. Give it some time, because you'll get through the fluff.
Yeah.
And you'll bin all that in the first 30 seconds, all the fluff language that everyone else is using. And then you might get something magical. And then I say, then the next step is to say to yourself, or to ask yourself, how did that come to be your message? Like, what happened to you? What happened to you that made that your message? Can you tell me a story about that? And I think with those two things, your kind of core message and your core story, your core narrative, if you like, the more you can connect to those things, the more you'll get in touch with something real. Yeah. Real, not just recycled.
Yeah. Authentic. I'm going to smack you in the face.
And it'll get you in touch with your purpose and your passion. And the reason you're here.
Challenge number 4.
Challenge number 4. Okay. Challenge number 4, I think, is not diversifying too early. So, and specifically, I mean, these days there are so many platforms. You can jump on board, right? Instagram, there's Facebook, there's Snapchat, there's TikTok, there's YouTube, there's Clubhouse, there's LinkedIn, there's all these things. And what I think a lot of people think is they've got to know them all, master them all. And what I think is really important is to find a platform that feels like home and just dominate it. You don't have to be everywhere. You just have to be where's home. Now, this is actually linked to a sort of a related topic, which is knowing your own temperament. Knowing your own temperament, because I've got to tell you, as you come into this industry, we were talking before this, and you were like, why haven't you got a podcast? Why haven't you got a book?
How many years have I been asking you to write a book? James, please write a book. He's like, go away, leave me alone.
I probably will. I probably will at some point. But for example, my temperament doesn't suit, and this is, I want to be really clear here. We've been having this conversation for a long time. Yeah. There are the reasons you're not doing something, which are reasons you tell people and yourself because it's something else, right? Yeah. Like, because it's bullshit. Yeah. I promise you this isn't that, right? Okay. Writing a book. I
believe you.
Writing a book and doing a podcast are not suited to my temperament. Yeah. They're just not. And they're not something that make me feel alive or on bliss or full of joy. The idea of doing them actually feels just like, ugh. Having said that, getting on video, like looking down the barrel of a camera lens, even if there's no one else in the room with me, and shouting out and ranting some cold hard truths, knowing that even one person will watch that, I could do that all day long. Yeah. I could do that all day long. And so, as Jim Rohn said, one of the true granddaddies of the industry, as Jim Rohn said, stand guard at the doorway of your mind. Be careful, because there will be people when you come into this industry professionally who will tell you, you should be, you need this. And it's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Pick 1 or 2 mediums that you can go like, okay, I can do that. Yeah. So for example, in 20 years, 18 years that I've been online, I've published 23 reports. I love writing reports.
You're really good at them as well.
I love writing reports. If you give me 3,000 words to make a point, make an argument, to get an idea in your head, I love it. I can chuck those out 2 or 3 a year, right? Yeah. The idea of writing a book doesn't suit my temperament. Now, when I say temperament, I'm actually going by a scientific measurement here, which is the Big Five. It's called the Big Five personality traits. This is the most scientifically, rigorously tested personality, psychometric, right? And it's what I like about the Big Five is they're not selling a product. It's not like it's not a commercial.
Here's the
thing.
Big Five,
yeah,
and these are the things that you should be modelling.
It's the one scientists and psychologists use to sort of make, and really they use it to be able to make certain predictions about people.
Yeah.
And I found it in about 2008. I took my Big Five, and it completely opened up my eyes to who I was. Like, I'm very volatile. I've got a very volatile personality, which is a subset of a trait called neuroticism. And neuroticism is made up of withdrawal and volatility. My withdrawal is pretty average, but and all neuroticism is my tendency to experience negative emotion. Yeah. And I'll tend to experience it more deeply and for longer. I'm also very high in another trait called extroversion, which is the opposite, is my tendency to experience positive emotion. So basically I feel big and I feel it for long and I feel it deeply. Yeah. And so what I find is that comes across in the medium that I prefer, which is hit record or hit go live on a video and go. Yeah. That's me. That's really
I love
good
your
for
lives
me.
because it's like they'll come on, I can leave and come back, and an hour later you'll still be
still
there.
I'm still going.
I'm still going.
I'm still going. I literally will only stop. I'm a type 1 diabetic, right? So I'll only stop if like my blood sugars are dipping or if I need to eat or I'm going to die. It's like you go to bed, man. But that suits me. I love going off on one. I'll give you another example of when I totally went against my traits and the cost of it, because there is a cost. I mean, we can have a laugh about it, but there's a massive cost, right? Early on in my career, I was doing a lot of one-to-one work with clients, and it was when Charlotte, my daughter, had just been born. So this is 2005, and I was doing free calls, trying to sell people onto coaching packages, and it was sucking my soul dry. And I had no time to see Charlotte, and it was breaking my heart, quite honestly. And one day she tried to come in and see me when I was on a call, never forget it, and I slammed the door shut in her face when I was on a call, and I was like, oh, something's got to give. Yeah. So I determined, this was before it was a big popular thing, but I was determined that I need to do online groups. Yeah. Because I can't be doing one-to-one calls all day long. So I created these courses, these group courses, and started doing those in January 2007. And what I found early on when I was making courses was I had this idea that I had to be this kind of moderated, professional, sort of very calm and
professional.
Professional,
right? I've seen your first pictures where you're young, little,
trying to be this.
That's exactly how I came into the space. Yeah, that's when you kicked my ass.
Trying to be something I wasn't, right? And I would even put on a suit and tie and all this kind of thing, and because I thought that I should be moderated, conservative, calm, and controlled. And
listen to me, I know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
When I tried to do videos back then, it would literally take me a week to do one video. Yeah. And it was hard. I would do take after take after take after take. I was putting on facades. I didn't know I was, but I was putting on all these facades to be something I wasn't. And it was hard. It was so difficult. I would literally cry. By the end of a week, I'd be sweating, just praying that I could get this take out of me. And I felt like a fraud because I'm the guy that helps all these other people to sell. Why can't I out my message? Why can't I say these things? And yet I'm being paid a fortune and working with some of the biggest names in the world to help them be real with their message, get it out really well on video. Mm-hmm. And so I was told myself a little story. Oh, well, maybe I'm just great at helping others, but not myself. Blah, 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 all this bullshit. And really, I just wasn't, I wasn't conducting myself in line with my traits and who I really am. When I did this work on the Big Five, everything changed. And I often find people in this industry that are going, oh, I'm having trouble, I'm going round and round. And I'm like, look at your traits. Yeah. And I always think your traits will inform you on where and how to sell that is best suited to your traits and where and how to deliver that is best suited to your traits. So I love small groups, for example. That really, okay, so there's a trait called agreeableness, and part of agreeableness is compassion and politeness. My compassion is moderately high, right?
Your politeness?
My politeness is pretty low.
I was going to say,
So
I'm
what I
sorry,
found
that's why I
was-
giggled when you said that.
Yeah,
I was like, where's that going to be on the
Yeah,
scale?
yeah, yeah. My agreeableness is pretty low. So I've got no problem doing a video and telling somebody that they should buy my thing at the end of it.
Yeah.
People with very high politeness and agreeableness, generally speaking, will tend to find it very difficult asking people to buy, especially if they're face to face with them.
Yeah.
I had a client a couple of weeks ago who was like, had spent thousands and been taught that he should do these discovery calls and then make an offer at the end of it. And he couldn't do it, even though he'd spent thousands, months, he'd learned from the best in the world and they'd done a great job, but he could not do it. Got him to take the test. He's in the 98th percentile for politeness. I said, well, there you go. And he says, I just can't do it. I've just had this wonderful talk with them. I just want to help them. I don't want to now talk about something they can buy. And I was like, dude, you need to sell differently. And so when I realized that you don't have to try and do everything, even if the experts say this is for you.
Yeah.
Like you're missing out if you don't learn how to pitch on the phone. I don't like selling on the phone.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Was never something that came easy for me. Don't do it.
Yeah.
And don't let anyone make you feel bad. That's what I would say. But there is a fine line between
running away from it.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes
Running
you run away from it. So I always go, try it and try it fully for like a month or 3 months.
And if it
go
doesn't work.
And if you're like stuck, it's like walking through treacle. If at the end of those 3 months and you've genuinely given it your all, you go, nah, trust that.
Yeah.
It's not you. Do something else.
Yeah. But don't let your bullshit stories
It's such
be
a
the
fine
thing
line.
that
It's such a
get
fine
in the way
line,
as well.
right?
Like, oh, I can't do that.
Yeah.
There's the competent, competently
exactly.
thing, which I always teach at the beginning of our workshops, because when you're learning something new, it is shitty, it is sticky, but there are ways of getting through it. Obviously, you can EAM your way through that. However, there are things that just not your flow state. So don't push.
100%.
Don't push yourself into doing things that are completely against, completely against.
So
your
someone
flow.
I love watching on YouTube is Russell Brand.
Yes.
And I think one of the reasons I get so much joy watching him is because I see somebody who is totally in the medium that is made for them.
Yeah.
You know, he's like this broadcasting, ranting jester, you know, showing that the king's naked, you know, and it's just, he's perfect for it.
Yeah.
And I think what I love about Joe Wicks, the guy who came to fame here in the UK, certainly during lockdown, who does
the PT.
Yeah, he does personal training and stuff like that. And he was huge on Instagram, and he would do these little 15-second meals. You know, that right there is lean in 15. And it was like 15 seconds to just cook a meal. Bah, 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 bah. And I was like, nothing makes me happier than when you see somebody and they're doing the thing they're made to do.
Yeah.
And you just go, oh. And you've got to find that. That does take a lot of testing. So be willing to have a period. What's the challenge is I think most people aren't willing to have a period where they go full out and test a number of different things.
Is that challenge number 5?
Maybe it is.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe it is. Yeah. There you go.
I think that's awesome. Thank you. Are we ready for? I think we're gonna have a little break and then come back for a part 2, because there's a whole bunch of other stuff I want to pick your brain about.
Can't wait.
So have to come back, tune in for part 2 of this conversation. Catch you soon.